The captions seem to be working, at least now that we have the slide deck going. And we'll get started in just a minute here. Just to make sure you're in the right place, this is the Apple Certified Educator Summit session where I'm going to explain a little bit about the program and explain my process for going through it and share a resource guide with you all. All right, and we will get started that way. If we do finish a few minutes early or we nail the timing right at 10:25, you'll have some time to navigate your way to your next session or whatever your plans are for this the rest of this morning. All right, to get started, we have turned on the CC and we are screen sharing. Great. My name is Joel LaBelle. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm a professional learning coach in educational technology at Capital Region ESD 113 in Tumwater. I'm also a certified Apple educator with their SWIFT badges for computer science education. And I'll explain what that sentence means as we go through. As a little bit of background about what we're doing here today. Oh, great question in the chat. I meant to share the PowerPoint's link already. So let me do that right away for you. Here is a link for the slide deck. Eventually, you'll want a link to this brochure, which has some resources and links and stuff like that. And I'm also going to provide the link to the main page for the Apple Teacher Program in case you want to just go in and start making an account as I present today. Thanks for that question. All right, so I am not I'm not paid by Apple. I prefer Apple products for my home computer and for my work computer if they give me a choice, but I'm not such a big fanboy that I don't see any problem with Apple or don't see any complications with Apple in the education space. But I also see a lot of benefit from my time engaging with this program, so I want to share that. I'm mostly here just to explain what the process is like. So some people who are in an educator role, maybe a leader role, maybe you're running a cohort of other teachers, and you're wondering, well, what does it mean to go through the program? What does it mean to be an Apple teacher? How long does it take? Is it fun? Those sorts of things. Does it actually give you real ideas for your classroom and real skills? And that's what I'm going to end up going through today. So the plan for today is to roughly tell you what the Apple Teacher, what that means, what the SWIFT badges are, what the process is like to go through in a rough timing chart where I've made some guesses based on your self-assessment of how quick you learn educational technology and digital tools and how long it might take you. What the process is like. I'll share the resource guide and click through it so you can see all the different stuff that I've put in one place for you. And then we'll go over a few ideas about implementation, and I'll try to answer these essential questions. So the essential questions are a big part of the summit. In the early planning stages of the summit, oh, we have done that part. Did I skip the session goals? Oh, my essential questions slide went away, so I'll leave this slide up and I'll read from my script here. So the essential questions were something that the planning team for this summit wanted to build the whole summit around. We wanted our presenters to give tangible, real answers to some of these questions. We didn't just want to say, all right, come and present on digital tools, but it's okay if people walk away from your talk and they don't really have a solid answer to a really strong question around digital tools. So one of the questions that we asked in our essential questions is around educator capacity and development. It says, how can we intentionally prepare, support, and grow our administrators, educators, and staff so they're equipped to support and grow students? And when I think about this as an educator's perspective, I think, how do we grow ourselves? And the Apple program was something where a district reached out to me to set up an iMovie film festival. And I didn't know very much about how to use iMovie, so I started learning. And by the end of the weekend, I was an Apple teacher. And so that was something where I had intentionally made sure that I was prepared. And then that process of just entering into that helped lift me up and grow my abilities and also my certifications. And now I'm able to teach that outwardly. So right away I was certified as an Apple teacher, and then immediately turning around and trying to present this to across the state so teachers could understand what was going on with it. Another another essential question theme was digital tools. How can we purposefully and effectively integrate digital tools to impact learning and practice? And I think that's really important here. Obviously Apple makes lots of digital tools. So they make all kinds of products. And I think purposeful and effective integration is what we're going for. It's not just supplementing. It's not just throwing technology on top of something we used to do. In some ways, it means about making an impact. And a lot of the stuff I've done with Apple, and I'll talk a little bit about the augmented reality webinars I've been attending, really feels like the next step for education, where we can use technology to open up certain possibilities that might not have been there before. All right. So what is an Apple teacher? Becoming an Apple teacher requires doing some short professional development sessions and testing out of some assessments. The assessments that they're going to run you through are based on some of the programs most popular on Macs or iPads. So you choose the beginning of your program whether you want to be using an iPad. Maybe that's because you personally use an iPad for this type of thing, or your students are using iPads, or you do it based on Mac. And then it runs you through the operating system and Keynote, GarageBand, iMovie, Pages, and make sure that you understand the depths of some of those. But it's not just about giving you a tutorial about how to use every feature of Pages. It's telling you how to use Pages in the classroom. It's testing you on ideas about collaboration and sharing, about designing digital notebooks or things that students can use together, even if they're not in the same place. And it's kind of like a combination of a basic skills check, and I'll go over that in a second, and also a focus on the classroom. So maybe you're an Apple user, or you love your iPhone, but you don't have other Apple products, and you've never even thought that it could be brought into the classroom, or it feels inaccessible or too expensive. Some of these things really help you realize that a lot of the stuff that was already on my computer, like GarageBand and iMovie, for example, I never touched. I dragged them to the unused Apple thing that I would make for my apps, because Apple just puts a bunch of stuff on your computer. But once I dug into it and realized the potential for education, it really inspired me. Registering for Apple Teacher is completely free. The courses are free. You could sign up today by going to that last link I shared in the chat, and you could start learning. You could start the program right away and get a badge for Mac on day one. And when you're complete with the first 6, so the 6 foundational skills like Keynote and GarageBand, Pages, things like that, you'll be given a certificate and a little Apple teacher graphic that you could use for your signature block or resume or anything like that, adding to a portfolio of badges you might be collecting. And then you might extend to the computer science arm. So you could just stop there, and that you're considered an Apple teacher, you're in the program for good. You'll be sent if you want to, or you can go check out the schedule of really fun collaborative events from across the country. I've been doing ones, like I said, in augmented reality, or about integrating technology with standards and things like that. So they have great training sessions. And in addition, they have the whole computer science arm, which is called Swift. Let's get to that next slide. So Swift badges are, well, what is Swift? Swift is Apple's programming language. So Swift is the actual language, the name of the language that you type out and do computer programming in. And then Swift Playgrounds is the app that's used to learn how to do this. And so to get the Swift badges, to become an Apple teacher with the Swift Playgrounds designation, you have to put in a bit more work than the previous stuff that I suggested. It's a really fun and interactive app, but basically what I had to do was start by doing the learn to code #1 lesson. So I basically went into the app and learned it as if I was a student. Now I had the teacher guide next to the side, and I had the Apple teacher program up with all the questions I was going to have to address. But I also went through and literally learn the basics of the coding language as well. And so I was kind of learning as a teacher, learning as a professional development coach, and also learning as someone who's just trying to learn coding because it's a new way to think. And so all the teacher guides, the resources, the courses, and the required apps for all this stuff are totally free. And so I think that's a really big advantage because sometimes we associate Apple with expensive or, impossible to bring into the classroom. And that might be true that like giving every single student a Chromebook is definitely cheaper than giving every single student an iPad for the most part, most of the time. But that doesn't mean that that's the end of the discussion for technology integration in our schools, right? One set of 8 iPads that can operate the augmented reality technology is enough for a teacher to facilitate a really effective learning session using the computer lab or checking them out or sharing them. And so I think just getting into the Apple Teacher Program, if you like Mac products, if you already use them, if you're more comfortable with them in general, or you recognize the innovation that some of the Apple products help nudge us toward, then I think it's worth digging in. There's nothing wrong if you get a few badges and you kind of get your ideas and move on and you just learn about iMovie. But I think it's a really effective thing to stay plugged into as well. I've gained a lot from being part of the national network. I'm going to go back to this timing slide. So how long does it take? This is not counting the Swift badges. This is just the regular Apple Teacher Program. And I don't know how long it takes. It's really hard to say. I don't know who you all are and where you're all coming from and what your context is. So if you're the type of person who primarily uses Apple products, whether personal or even through your work, and let's say sometimes you struggle with learning new things, but sometimes you're pretty impressed with yourself. You learn digital tools pretty quickly. Then it might take you about 12, maybe 15 hours. Like I said, I did this in a weekend after I had got the idea to do an iMovie film festival and to support a district with that. But I am primarily an Apple user and I'm an educational technology coach, so I tend to quickly learn things. So that I recognize that my timing was much quicker. If you're never used Apple, and you're pretty good with computers, it might take you 20 hours. So it's worth thinking that out, especially if you're thinking about how to commit and intentionally go through the process. Because I think one of the best ways to do this would be do it with a group. And that's something that I would love to facilitate. I could help be a coach for a cohort of people that are trying to go through it over some period of time. Maybe they make a goal to just get it done before the Christmas break. And you're spending, no more than 6 or 8 hours a month on it, and you're spreading it out over a couple different sessions of working on it or checking in about it. It's not something that you just need to sit down and slog through. It's fun. The assignments they send you on are very useful and immediately are ones you could keep a copy of and turn it right into something for your class. I don't think the modules and quizzes are very difficult to navigate. I think the layout and the interface that they give you is intuitive and understandable. I found that to be pretty true about the Apple Teacher Program. I found it less true about the Swift program. Going through the Swift badges required you to just do a little more of the stuff and read through a little more of the resource guides. And just sort of sit with it and then answer questions from a sort of more top level. So it required some actual skill acquisition, whereas if you already know how to use Pages, you already know how to use GarageBand pretty well, then you could go on and take most of the tests. Right now, you might not know every bit about the collaboration side because you haven't learned that, but it wouldn't take you long. So it kind of depends on your previous use of some of these toys and apps and stuff. They don't give a ton of background, but they link to it all. So if you need practice, if you want tutorials and stuff like that, and just because they're Apple products doesn't mean you can't use Google products to Google about them and find out how to do something on them. Like I said, the Swift badges are a little harder. You got to go through all the Learn to Code #1, or maybe you don't have to go through it all, but it did feel like going through it all was both really fun. Swift Playgrounds is so fun. There's a little cartoon, and you're trying to go through these challenges, and you're learning to debug, You're learning the programming languages and the syntax and things like that. And it's really inspiring from both the point of view of a teacher and coach and the student. So I was working on challenges in the Learn to Code on Swift Playgrounds with a first grader. And she was psyched about it. She was super psyched to see the cartoon go around and to try to work out the puzzle. I had to be, interpreting some of the language and stuff like that because there was a bunch of text on the screen, and a first grader is just getting to the point where they're able to read a bunch of text and interpret the instructions. So there was some hand-holding in that way, but there was also like actual critical thinking skills being challenged and performing these sort of logic games in a way to debug a certain thing or to get the little cartoon to move to go turn the key and turn the gate or whatever. And then the sixth grader thought it was immediately thinking of ways to apply it, right? So she was just like, oh my God, if I learn this and get good at this, I could make apps. And it was like the first place she went, or, oh my God, this is going to be like, people need to know languages. How many programming languages are there? And she didn't realize that there are many, right? She was just like, oh, I thought programming was just, you use the keyboard and you type it and it makes computer programs. So it was really cool to just have it open and be learning it around students and have their inspiration like tangible. I thought that was really impressive. Oh, we're gonna go like that. So I shared this in the chat, and I have a resource guide here. So I'm gonna switch over. Oh, my captions stopped, but they're gonna stop again when I go to the resource guide. I'm sorry about that. This resource guide is something that I made just to help you along. So please download it. You can just keep it as the link and just save it or bookmark it as the link that I shared here. That just brings you to the slide deck in present mode. You can also go to the link on my slide deck here, and I can give you this, make a copy link. Yes, I believe that is the make a copy link. And that should allow you to make a copy of this guide in case you just want to save it to your own drive, or maybe you want to attack it and start editing it and make it into something of your own, but building off the same design. So let's look at the Apple guide here. So on the sides here, I have some tabs like how to use it, starting points, badges, guides, how to connect, and we're going to go through these. This works like a clickable web doc. Oh, and I think might as well turn these back on. Oops, they seem to turn off every time I change a tab. Oh, and this one doesn't want to allow me to caption. So you can figure out how to use this guide. Just explains what's going on here. And then some starting points. So the Apple Teacher main website I already shared with you all. But quick guides for teaching and learning with Apple products. Some of these are on the Apple Teacher website, but the Apple Teacher website does not have like a bar across the top with all of the resources, and you can go back to them. They like these cards that scroll through that you sometimes have to go find. Sometimes I would find a resource and I'd be like, this is the coolest thing ever, and just assume I could go back and get it. And then it wasn't as easy to track down. So I made this resource guide to just bring everything into one place, whether it's not even from Apple, it's just a YouTube video, or it's a PDF download, or it's actually from their Apple Teacher website where you need to be signed in. Either way, I really attached all of this stuff into this one thing. So for example, you can even click here for lesson integration. And that's going to bring you right to the lesson integration part of the Apple Teacher website, where they're going to describe different ways to integrate iPad, Mac, and apps into the lessons that you're already teaching. So after the starting points, I have information about the badges themselves. And I think the really cool thing is this Foundations Interactive Journal. It's a Pages document, and it's kind of like this digital brochure. It's an informative document that you download that you can also fill out. So I think that is really cool. It's something that you have to kind of be within Pages for. It doesn't just work as a web doc like this one does. But the Foundations Interactive Journal is a great way if you're getting started, or if you have a small team. Maybe it's you and a couple other content area folks in your district that really want to up your Apple game. Start the journal together and make a commitment to check in with each other about it, so that you're not just doing professional development, but you go that extra step where they're like, hey, write this down. And you're like, yeah, I got it. But the journal makes it kind of fun to move these badges around and kind of interact with this this journal, keeping track of your path through everything. I also in here put some teacher guides. So there's a ton of stuff on Apple's an App Store, or what is it, the bookstore on Apple Books. But I wanted to find the ones that were most useful for this exact process. So the whole teaching coding collection on Apple Books is on here, a quick start to coding, and then there's other teacher guides around this. And in that same area, you can find stuff for Everyone Can Create. And Everyone Can Create is Apple's kind of, I don't know, buzzword or something. There's a bunch of ebooks named Everyone Can Create. And it's like everyone can create art, everyone can create music. And it's just emphasizes all the different apps that are built into a Mac that you can leverage for collaborative learning and stuff like that. We also have ways to connect with others. So I think if you're into this type of thing, or you want ideas, like okay, how are Apple teachers doing anything? Is this just one big advertisement for Apple? It's like, well, go to the Apple EDU chat that happens on Twitter. Hashtag Apple EDU chat is usually like really active on Tuesdays, but you can just go look at it anytime. There's tons of threads. And sure, there are Apple employees in there, nudging things toward, whatever, soliciting the benefits of Apple products. But really, it's just a ton of teachers who are like, this is what's so cool about what I get to do with my students. So the stories and the examples that you can find in there, the links to massive spreadsheets that have a ton more resources. I've found a lot of really great stuff just plugging into the social media side of the Apple teachers. And there's also a Facebook community for those that use Facebook as a way to keep in touch with educators across the country. So that's it for here. Here's a quick checklist just to show you that you start by creating your account. If you're going to go the whole approach to do Swift Playgrounds, you need to download the app. If you don't need to download apps like iMovie and GarageBand and things like that because they're already on your computer. And then once you've completed all of the 6 Apple teacher badges and or the 4 Swift badges, then you get those signature block certificates and all of that. So we're running out of time here. I want to make sure that if folks have any questions that they please drop them in the chat so I have some time to answer you before you head off to your next thing. In the meantime, I want to show you just what the website looks like. Now, the problem is it's really hard for me to show you the website from your perspective because some of this stuff won't be filled out. They'll be trying to get you to finish your Pages certificate. And since I finished that stuff and I'm an Apple teacher, it's really just showing me some resources that I can access. I can build a portfolio and things like that. But the one I really want to show you is the augmented reality overview. So for any of you who are really into iPad technology, you really like this idea of what augmented reality is, but you just can't quite imagine bringing it into the classroom yet. It feels like too far away. It is not. It is so awesome. Some of the apps I have on my iPad that I've just been playing around for education are amazing. You can open up Da Vinci's inventions right in your living room, or you can bring the students out to the ball field and have them all be watching different Apollo missions, takeoffs, or something like that. There are just, and you can have them creating story building and mapping out a story that they've already read. You could be the person using augmented reality, where what we did in one of the webinars was we made an augmented reality cover and a couple scenes from a storybook that they were reading in class. Now, we did it off 3 Little Pigs because it was just easy for us. But the point is that then students would have been able to hold up a tablet and pan around the scene that's from the story that they were just in. And that can be really, really fun. So there are really cool things with the augmented reality side of things. All right, did I answer the essential questions? Well, let's go back up to these essential questions. Oh, they're not on here, actually. Sorry, they're right here. So how can we purposefully and effectively integrate digital tools to impact learning? Well, one way is learn the digital tools. So we might think we know them from being Mac users or Apple users or Fringe users or sometimes users, but we really need to purposefully and effectively learn these digital tools. I admit, I've been a Mac user for a while. I literally never touched GarageBand. I didn't even love touching iMovie that much because for some reason I interpreted it as like too basic or something, like not good enough or something. All of a sudden I jumped into iMovie, I learned it, I got certified as an Apple teacher. And beyond education purposes, couple weekends ago, I put together an hour-and-a-half iMovie in about 6 hours of work total, because I had already learned all of those skills and saw all the ways that I could turn something into a really awesome thing. So now I could be able to teach people how to very easily add transitions or collaborate or share. So I really look forward to ideas from you educators. I know there's not that many folks in here today, and I don't see any questions in the chat quite yet. So I'm assuming people are either seeing this as pretty straightforward or don't have too many questions to address. But if we're at our time, so I want to just wrap us up here and not just rant too long. It's a little weird being in Hopin, because in Zoom, like at the end, you start to get this body language from everyone else that things are done, and you get these thumbs up and these nods. And in Hopin, I don't see any of you. So we're just going to wrap ourselves up here. Can you show your email slide? Yeah, I'll go back up to the top. And as far as my email, I would love to work with you all. So I work for ESD 113 out of Capital Region in Tumwater, but I'm plugged into all of the other ESDs too. And so if you're an educator, you have a cohort in your region, something like that, that you want some support, you want to learn more about this, or you really just want like someone to facilitate 6 Zoom meetings or something so you can work through with a team, let me know, because it's either going to be me or it's going to be me plugging into the folks that are in your ESD and trying to build a team that can support you all. So definitely don't hesitate to reach out for more information about any of this stuff. And I hope you all have a wonderful day with the summit, whether you've been here for 3 days already or you're just getting started with some sessions. I know personally, I am very much looking forward to the 4 p.m. keynote with Parfait Basale, who is Chief Diversity Officer at South Puget Sound Community College and someone I've seen speak a number of times, and I think it'll be really great. Great, thanks, Samantha. Yeah, I am really looking forward to trying some of this stuff in the